Welcome everyone to episode number 1 of Losers Ball. I am your host Ben alongside Elon, and we are super happy to get this podcast going. We don't know where it will take us, but we're happy that you guys will be joining along for the ride. We are two former bench warmers in high school, averaging no more than 2.5 points per game. And, we wanted to take our conversations from the bench to a podcast, just talk everything about basketball, talk about rumors, teams, jerseys, relocation, you name it, anything. We hope to get some guests in the future and really expand the podcast. And, you could follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at LosersBallPod. We post content frequently and, you'll be in touch with us. So the NBA is back, and we are super happy that it is back. This finally fills in a gap from the weekends to during the week. We got some entertainment on. We're happy that the NBA and the Players Association were able to reach a deal to start a season, a nice 72 game season. I believe Adam Silver has taken the necessary precautions to ensure that this season runs very smoothly. He's been able to, see how the NFL and the MLB have undergone their operations, and he sees what works, what doesn't work. Obviously, yesterday we had our first cancellation of the season. Unfortunately, Thunder vs Rockets got postponed, but everything seems to be under control, and that game should be rescheduled soon. On December 22nd, we had our first games of the season. We had Brooklyn versus Golden State, and we had the Lakers versus the Clippers. What were your initial thoughts, Elon?
All I can say is that the Nets are going to be a dominant team. They looked fast-paced. Their offense was flowing. Defense was great. They got depth. They got superstars. Kyrie and KD were clicking. And really, I just can't see a flaw with the roster. What about you?
Brooklyn looks great. They're amazing. It was great to see Kevin Durant back and healthy. They're saying he's at around 90%, but even KD at 90% is still lethal. It was great to see him and Kyrie connecting. Truly, I think they're the best team in the East right now. I think they're way more deep. They have more depth than Milwaukee, and I think come later on the season, when other teams are having a bit of fatigue, I think Brooklyn will still be very healthy, even though, it's Durant's first season back since the 2018-2019 season. Kyrie was out for a chunk of the season last year with his injuries, but they have a lot of guys that can, pick up the load and could really help the team going down the stretch.
Well, everyone was excited about KD and Kyrie, playing the first game together. KD playing his first game in Brooklyn. The debut that I was most excited for was Steve Nash. What were your thoughts on him?
They're saying that he's bringing back the old Phoenix Suns days, reuniting with his former teammate Amar'e Stoudemire as the assistant coach. I think he's in a very good position. I guess it's a bit hard to tell if it's from his coaching that they're going to be successful or if he just has, a great players surrounding him. But it could be a bit of both. I'm very excited to see what he has to do. Some nice Canadian representation over there. I'm very excited. I'm on the Brooklyn bandwagon for this year.
Is that an overreaction or a accurate representation? That's the question.
Only time will tell. We'll see how Brooklyn does. We can't wait to see some of their bigger games this year. Against the Lakers and against the Bucks and against the Clippers. So we'll see if they're real or not. But starting off the season against the Warriors, giving the performance that they did on Tuesday night, I think the Warriors are in big trouble, and they're nowhere near from that dynasty that they were a couple of years ago.
Losing Klay Thompson was rough. He's a huge loss for the team, but really without Curry, they just can't produce offense. There's no other creators. You can't rely on Andrew Wiggins to get you 25 points a game, even though he's done it in the past. But it's just going to be a sloppy team.
Yeah, it got pretty ugly very quickly. They have some promise in Wiseman, but even still, that's not enough. They're nowhere near from. They lost all their depth basically from their previous championship runs, and that's an issue. Obviously, you weren't expecting another setback injury with Klay Thompson. That obviously doesn't help. But I still think even if he was still there, I still think that they're outmatched against other teams in the league now.
I'll be honest, with Klay still there, I was really excited for the team. I thought that the starting lineup with Klay in there looked really good. And I thought they could have done some damage in the West. Now losing Klay, they really can't create some offense. Wiseman does look really good, and I think he's got some big games coming, big seasons coming. But to rely on a starting rookie as one of the focal points of your team is going to be rough, especially in the brutal West. I can't imagine them doing too well, going deep in the playoffs at all, at least not with this current roster. Their depth is really bad. It's just looks bleaker and bleaker. I was also expecting bigger things from Curry. People are relying on him to have an MVP-like season, going back to his unanimous MVP season. But really, I want to see if he can actually be good on a bad team, or is he only a good player on a good team?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's only so much that you could do, though. You have to have at least like another superstar on your team to be like a contender.
I want to know if he can will his team to a playoffs and maybe even scare a team in the first round a little bit. Like we've seen Harden do it, we've seen Westbrook do it. I want to know, can Curry do that also? Is Curry better than Harden and Westbrook? Absolutely, but can he make the most with the bad roster like they did? I want to see that happen. It'll be a fun challenge for him.
We'll hold off on the if they can make it to the playoffs. We'll hold off our predictions for a bit later in the show. But what were your thoughts on the Lakers versus Clippers? Both teams stockpiled during the offseason, taking some former Raptors. But what were your initial thoughts on that game?
I mean, I think that we've seen now that the way to succeed is just to get some former Raptors. That's how if I was building a roster, I would just trust to pick up the pieces that Masai's going to leave me. But to be honest, even though the Lakers lost, I still, if I was them, wouldn't be scared at all. Their roster looked better. They looked deeper. And right after blowing a 3-1 lead of the playoffs, the Clippers came back and blew a 20-point lead in the first half. And so even though the Clippers end up winning with them, they honestly look like they have an 8-man deep rotation at most. Marcus Morris wasn't playing, and they're relying on Nicholas Batum to play the first meaningful minutes he's had to play since his Portland Trailblazers days. And I'm going to be honest, when you're relying on Nicholas Batum and Patrick Patterson to give you meaningful minutes, it's going to look a little bleak. So they did get Serge Ibaka. They picked up Luke Kennard, which is a great addition also, an underrated one. They might have overpaid him in the offseason also, but they still, got a nice player. But I still think that when you compare them to the Lakers and the other teams, in the West and the East, I don't think they'll make the finals again. And I think it's going to be a rough season for them. They'll underwhelm.
So for this year, for the 2020-2021 season, do you think this is a make or break year for the Clippers going forward?
I'm going to be honest. I think that they just signed Paul George to his 5-year max extension. But if we've seen anything from the Clippers, is that a 5-year max doesn't mean much. They signed the same deals with Blake Griffin and then traded him away as soon as they could. If they fall short again, I can see them trading him away, maybe for a Brad Beal-like player, maybe for someone else, and try to find a different superstar pairing for Kawhi Leonard. I think they're going to do everything they can to keep Kawhi because, when you have the best defender in the league and you have a guy who can will you to a championship, you keep that player instead of playoff P. But I think that this will be a make or break season for if this roster stays intact or not.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned before, the Clippers signed Paul George to the 5-year extension. You're assuming that contract's going to be easy to move. Not everyone wants to take on a contract of that size. Just get whatever you can left out of Paul George.
We thought the same thing about Chris Paul. We thought the same thing about Russell Westbrook. And if anything, if history's proven itself, is that if a player is productive, you can trade a contract. Anything is possible. The Rockets had to give up a few draft picks to trade Chris Paul, and the Thunder ended up getting another draft pick for Chris Paul. So as they say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. I'd happily take a Paul George in his prime if I was a small market team to get me into the playoff race, to push me over the top. He's still a good player. Let's not kid ourselves. He dominated the night on Tuesday night. Dropped 33 points with like 5 3-pointers. He was unstoppable. That player's still in him. I'd still happily take him. He may not be the number one man on your roster, and you may not rely on him to lead you, but he's a nice number two.
Moving forward, Raptors opening their season in Tampa. We won't call them the Tampa Raptors, but it looks like you might be entering into a new era into Raptors basketball, at least for this year, at least for this season. I'm going to try to not show my biases as a Pelicans fan, but yesterday's game caught me by surprise. I'm not going to lie. I messaged you after the first quarter, and I said, Fred VanVleet's looking like he's worth that extension. But after that first quarter, kind of quieted down him and the entire team.
Listen, I'm not too worried. It's the first night out of 72. There's still many games to come. I think that the Raptors are a great organization and a great team, and they might have lost Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, the two key pieces in their rotation, but they got Aaron Baines. And if you've seen anything on Twitter, Aaron Baines has a lot of fans for good reason. He's got a whole Twitter fan page dedicated just to him. The man plays with pure hustle, all his heart. If I was a big man in the league, I'd want to model my game here on Aaron Baines. I'm going to be honest. You'll have a lot of fans are going to be flocking towards him. Expect big things from Matt Thomas to take the next step forward. OG looks great on defense. He's got room to improve on offense, and I think that you'll see some big leaps from him this season also. If Freddie, OG, and Siakam can all continue taking those next steps forward and continue to progress, I still think that the Toronto can be a good team, a top team in the East. And the most valuable asset is Nick Nurse. He's the best coach in the league. He's constantly scheming against other rosters. In a 7-game playoff series, the Raptors are tough to beat just because of Nick Nurse alone, let alone the rest of their roster.
Yeah, and obviously, as you mentioned before, we saw a lot of surprises yesterday. In my opinion, that Raptors game was one of those surprises. But like you said, it's a 72-game season. Don't panic after the one game. It's going to be okay. But that was just my takeaway from yesterday. I think New Orleans played really well. Brandon Ingram, he's also looking like he's worth all the money. JJ Redick balled out yesterday. He was on fire. Eric Bledsoe, perfect fit in New Orleans. New Orleans really caught me by surprise yesterday because I wasn't sure how they're going to mesh together, with the new acquisitions, just having a lot of younger developing players, but they look pretty good. And if they could compete in the West, that'd be great for us. I'd love to see that.
I'm gonna be honest. I like the Pelicans roster. It's the West is gonna be a bloodbath, as we all know. But the Pelicans, they got Steven Adams, who's just a big, strong force down low.
He's an absolute presence, big presence down there.
They brought in Eric Bledsoe as a nice, steady point guard in case Lonzo gets a little streaky at times. JJ Redick coming off the bench and provide some shooting. They have a lot of different pieces and have a lot of, they can throw in a lot of interesting lineups. They can go small ball with Zion at the 5. They can have a mega big lineup with, Zion at the 3, Steven Adams at the 5, throw in Nico Melli or whoever else. And Stan Van Gundy is going to change up this the way they play. It's going to be a very fun season for them. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. Again, the West is a bloodbath, but I think that I like their roster.
No, I think we definitely have the pieces this year to be competitive. One of the issues that New Orleans has had over the previous years is, we started the season off very slow. We lose the first 3 games, first 4 games, and that really affects the play. But getting off to a win right away really helps us out. Just players all over contributing in one way or another, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, I'm scared for the Raptors. This is the first time they've been losing record since 2014. So
yeah, I believe
this might be a sign of changing times.
I saw a tweet. I saw a tweet. I think it was January 4th, 2014. Almost 7 years ago that they've had a losing record.
Maybe this is a sign of changing times. I sure hope not. Maybe this is how the Pelicans must feel at the start of every season. Hopefully the Raptors can change that around. Get back to their winning ways.
Hey, in Masai we trust, though. That's all you can really say for now. He's got a plan. We know he has a plan. The Raptors are in good hands, in my opinion.
Well, Ben, I want to know. We just saw the first day, two nights of basketball. I think all the teams have played now except for OKC and Houston. And I want to know, what are your thoughts going into the season? What do you predict is going to happen? Who do you think is going to make the playoffs in the East and the West? Your predictions for the finals. Let me have it.
Okay, so for my predictions, these were made before the first games of the year, because yesterday was a pretty surprising results. Yesterday, in my opinion, I mean Sacramento sealing out at the buzzer against Denver. It's very didn't see that one coming. San Antonio beating Memphis, very surprising. Washington holding Philly to a very close game towards the end. Didn't see that one coming. Orlando beating Miami, also was very surprised with that. However, as you mentioned,
That's why I love basketball. Anything can happen.
exactly as you mentioned, it's a long season. But for my top six teams in the East, I have Brooklyn as the 1 seed. I think they're very deep. They're very scary. As long as they stay healthy, I think they're a better team than the Bucks, who I have at the number 2 seed. With the Bucks trading for Jrue Holiday, I think they gave up a lot of depth in that trade and assets in the future. A couple of draft picks there, so that really cost them in my mind. I have Miami at 3, Boston at 4. Yeah, I guess I'm giving a lot of respect to Miami going to the championship last year. Unfortunately losing to the Lakers, but I still think that they're a very good team. They play well together, and they're a team to beat. Boston, they looked great yesterday. Tatum looks unreal.
I'm gonna be honest here. I wanna throw something out.
Yeah.
Do you think that Tatum got lucky? It looked like that shot was gonna miss, and I'm gonna be honest. I don't think he was relying on a bank shot.
No, he probably wasn't relying on a bank shot, but he still looks pretty good. He looks like he's taking that leap forward this year.
Absolutely. I just think that the second that ball left his hands, he probably thought he missed it and the game was over.
Yeah.
I think he got bailed out. And we've all been lucky. We've all had the backboard save us.
You've hit a couple of bank shots in your career?
Oh, I've hit more than a few bank shots. The bank's always open for me.
So yeah, we got Boston 4, Philly 5, and Toronto 6. I think, to be a good regular season team in the East, it's not too hard to do. This year, though, I think the East is much more competitive than we've seen it in other years, because for the 4 play-in teams, I have the Pacers, Hawks, Wizards, and Magic. Personally, I think the Hawks are very, very underrated this year. I think they brought in a lot of veterans such as Rondo and Gallinari to help complement the younger players on their team. So I think that's going to really mesh well together for them. I wouldn't be surprised, if they're very competitive. I mean, they beat a very a struggling Bulls team yesterday, but overall they still look very good. Pacers, I'm just really not expecting much from them this year. They've really been stagnant over the past few years. They haven't really made any major additions to the team. Oladipo, coming back, no one knows what his health is like. If he's going to be what he was before his injury or not. But I think they're kind of faltering. And Washington, I'm pretty optimistic for them this year. They're the 9 seed, but I still think that they'll be like a competitive 9 seed in my opinion. That trade, as I was talking to someone and they said the Wall trade for Westbrook was essentially trading 4 quarters for a Looney, but I still think Westbrook's a great addition for the team. I think him and Beal will work well together, and I think just having those 2 guys on the same team will help the younger players develop. And then
I 100% agree on Washington. I'm actually a lot higher on Washington than you are. I have them actually in the top 6 of the East.
Okay.
And I think that Westbrook's still a great player. I think you're gonna see him, back to his OKC days. He'll be handling the ball more. I think him and Bradley Beal is a lot more of a natural fit. Bradley Beal will be playing defense, unlike James Harden does at times. Bradley Beal moves off the ball, unlike James Harden does. And I think Bradley Beal is used to playing with another player who has the ball in his hands, and John Wall. I think that they could coexist. I think that the roster around them makes a lot of sense. Thomas Bryant, I think, will have a huge season with Russell Westbrook dishing him the ball. I mean, he already had a triple-double in his first game in Washington.
Yeah.
He's finding his open teammates. You can see all the Instagram videos, the tweets about him. He's helping out all his teammates. He's taking that mentorship role. And, if we're going to be comparing Westbrook and Harden, it looks like Westbrook's a better teammate right now. Harden's going out to clubs and getting his.
Hey! The media is lying to us. That video was fake. Come on, he's innocent until proven guilty.
I think the cancellation of the game says everything.
Just going back to the Wizards. Don't forget that Westbrook's being reunited with Scotty Brooks, who led some pretty good OKC team. So that can be very beneficial.
Sounds like you think that Scotty Brooks and Westbrook are gonna bring Washington back to the finals. That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying finals, but I'm saying if Scotty Brooks get the best of Westbrook, then they could prove me wrong easily, and I'd be happy if they proved me wrong.
So my top 10 seeds in the East. They're actually the exact same teams as you. And for those of you that are wondering why we're doing the top 10 seeds in the East and not the top 8 or all 15, is that this year the NBA introduced the new play-in tournament that the 7 and 8 seed are up for grabs within the 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds, and that the 7 and 8 seed will play each other once, the 9 and 10 seed will play each other once, and the winner of the 7-8 game automatically gets the 7th spot in the playoffs. The loser of the 9-10 game is automatically out of the playoffs, and then the loser of the 8 seed and the winner of the 9 seed go on to play each other, and the winner of that game goes on for the 8 seed. So we're going to go the top 10 teams for who's eligible for the playoffs and for the play-in tournament. And so my top 6 teams in the East, who I think are guaranteed to make the playoffs, is Milwaukee as the 1 seed, Brooklyn as the 2 seed, Philly as in 3, followed by Boston, Toronto, and Washington. I've Washington top 6. For me, I think that Milwaukee, as we've seen, they're an amazing regular season team. They're going to guarantee to get a ton of wins. Drew Holiday is a fantastic addition for the roster. Their roster just looks more complete. They don't have the depth, which scares me, and that's why I think the team will end up getting a little fatigued by the playoffs, and they may not make it to the finals. But I think for regular season, they'll be great. Brooklyn, they look great. They, as we said before, the roster just looks complete. They look deep. KD and Kyrie look fantastic. And Philly, actually, I think is going to be surprising a lot of people this year. I think they're going to be great. I think the Simmons and Embiid, in a vacuum, I think that they work. I think the roster around them last year didn't work at all. Elton Brand may not have had the right direction, but Daryl Morey came in. He left Houston for family reasons. I guess that Philly's his new family. And he got shooters around them. Brought in Danny Green. Brought in Seth Curry. And I really think that the roster's going to make a lot more sense. I think that they can make a push for the finals. I really think that their team with the Simmons and Embiid duo with shooters around them in the pick and roll, they can be really unstoppable. They got great defenders. Simmons is an all defensive player, and I expect big things from Philly.
They are scary. I have them at 5, but I wouldn't be surprised if they take like 3 or the 4 seed.
I think that they're actually going to go to the finals in the East. That's my big bold prediction.
Okay.
And then for the play-in tournament, I have Miami, Indiana, Atlanta, and Orlando. Although Miami might have made the finals last year, end of the day they were still a 5 seed. They lost some pieces in Derrick Jones, who was a crucial part of that rotation in the finals, and they really didn't get much. I think they're relying a lot on their young guys and Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson to take the next step further, and to really help propel that team. But I think that a lot of other teams in the East got better, whereas they didn't really do much, and that's why I think they're gonna make the playoffs and they'll easily come into 7, and they'll win that first game of the play-in tournament. I just see them taking a step back. The East is as much as everyone rips on the East for not being a good conference, there's still a ton of great teams. It's gonna be a hard playoff race. I just think that Miami is gonna make the play-in tournament.
Okay, I'm just looking at the teams right now. We didn't mention Charlotte. We never mentioned the Knicks. We never mentioned the Bulls. We never mentioned the Pacers. And we never mentioned the Cavs.
I think you mean the Pistons.
What has to happen? What miracle on this earth has to happen for one of those teams to make it to the playoffs this year, or to be even competitive this year?
First of all, I think you meant the Pistons and Pacers, but for any of them to make it, Kevin Love being back to his Minnesota days, and Colin Sexton being the next Kyrie, RJ Barrett representing all of Canada and making an all-star team. I think that other than those top 10 teams that we mentioned, it's going to be hard for any of the other teams to make it.
Yeah. The East has just gone way more competitive, and there's a very big drop off from 10 to 11 in seeding wise in the East. Going to the West, I think we have very similar top sixes for the playoff teams. Who did you have as your top six?
So my top six was the Lakers, the Clippers, Nuggets, Mavericks, Phoenix, and the Blazers. I think the Lakers are by far the best team in the league. They won the championship last year and only got better by bringing in Schroeder and Harrell, brought in Gasol, who is a great piece for that team.
A nice veteran presence, yeah.
Exactly, and I think that they're leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. I think the Clippers are also a great team, but they don't compare to the Lakers, as we mentioned before. Then Denver, I'm expecting more great stuff from Jokic. I think Murray will continue his excellent play. It may not be as great as the bubble, but I think he'll continue to play well. They did lose Jeremy Grant, but I think that they can make up for it with a step forward from Michael Porter Jr. Maybe Bol starts, gets All-Star game appearance by Bol. I saw Bol was running. He was trying to gun for the Rookie of the Year award. I don't get how that's possible since he played in the bubble last year and he played. So I don't get how he's be eligible for Rookie of the Year. But apparently, bubble games don't matter. Then Dallas. I think,
I mean, hey. Some people say last year had an asterisk, so
I think that's only Jordan fans who say that. And then I think that Luka will be great this year. I think that Dallas made some improvements to their roster. Josh Richardson was a great signing. Phoenix, we've all seen what they've done. Chris Paul and Devin Booker, it's going to be a fun backcourt. DeAndre Ayton looks like he's going to be great. I actually really like the rookie Jalen Smith off the bench for them as a nice big man who can stretch the floor, play some defense. He scored 4 points in his debut, but he was in the right place where he had to be, provided some good defense. And then I think that the Blazers will round out their top six. Dame looked fantastic in the bubble last year, and I expect good big things from him as well. Nurkic will have hopefully a healthy season this year. The additions of Covington, Derrick Jones Jr. I really think all around the roster looks a lot more complete. Makes a lot more sense than last year's. So I think that they're going to be the sixth seed in the West. What about you?
So I mean, the only difference that we really have in the top six, I have the Jazz in number 4, Suns also in 5, and I have the Mavs in 6. But our 1 through 3, with the Lakers, Clippers, and Nuggets, it's the exact same. Phoenix getting Chris Paul this offseason, I think that's a big addition for the roster. Another veteran presence. We see, he still has a lot left in the tank. He's going to help out Booker. And, him working with Ayton, I think it's going to be really well. I'm expecting a lot of big things from Phoenix this year. Mavs, I have in 6. To be honest, Luka, amazing player, but I don't think he's enough around him to, go forward in the West. If you meet the Lakers in the playoffs, I think it'd be unanimous that the Lakers would beat the Mavs in the playoffs. And for the final 4 teams in the
I think
7
that
to 10.
Just to counter what you're saying, I think that it's going to be unanimous the Lakers will beat anyone in the playoffs. Mavs, Clippers, Nets, Bucks. I think that the Lakers, will can really beat any team in the playoffs, and I think that's why they're going to win another title this year.
Mm-hmm. No, but I'm also what I'm trying to say is that the other teams, I would say, they're more established. They have more veteran presence. Better, more. I would say more depth. But the Mavericks, I don't think they have. They're like a piece or two away from being a serious contender in the West. In my opinion, hopefully, Kristaps could come back. He's healthy. If he could, get back to what he was like on the Knicks, that'd be a great addition. But at the moment, I just don't see that happening, which is why I have them at 6. They'll still be very good. I think they're more complete than the other teams I'm about to mention. But I'm just not sold on them just yet. For the final 4, for the play-in teams, I have the Blazers, I have the Rockets, I have the Grizzlies, and I have the Pelicans. I have the Pelicans this low because I'm not sure what to expect coming to the season. We made a lot of great off-season moves. As I mentioned before, we got Bledsoe, we got Steven Adams. We're hoping that Zion stays healthy this year. We locked up Ingram. He's looking great. But I just wasn't sure to expect. If they play like they did yesterday against the Raptors, I'd honestly have the Pelicans up in the top 6. But at the moment, I have to keep them in the play-in tournament because I'm just not too sure what to expect from them. Memphis, I also have them in the play-in tournament. You know, they were very competitive last year. I think they exceeded people's expectations last year, but they really just didn't seem to make any, you know, big moves. They're really relying that their players are going to, you know, continue to develop. And, you know, when you're in a conference such as the West and you have teams like the Lakers and the Clippers who are essentially, you know, stockpiling talent, it's going to be tough to compete, you know, stay competitive with those teams. Rockets, who knows what's going on there? You know, if Harden's going to stay there the entire year, we have no clue. If, you know, hopefully DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall, you know, could stay healthy, they'd be, you know, they're a great pairing together. But there's just too many questions surrounding them. Like, what's going to happen? Literally, no one knows what's happening. They're also, you know, suffering a fall from grace, just like the Warriors. It's just, they're unpredictable. That's why I can't say, you know, they're a guaranteed lock in the West. And I also have the Blazers, you know, as a 7th seed. They're just not a playoff team. You know, they're pretty good in the regular season. You know, we see Dame and CJ going off, but come the playoffs, they're kind of nowhere to be found. And, you know, and if both players, if CJ and Dame aren't producing, and there's only one of them producing on one night, it's a guaranteed loss. You know, we've seen that in other playoff series and, you know, just in the regular season. So, you know, obviously we're hoping for the best for them, but I'm just also not sold on them this year.
Ben, I think you're forgetting that they have, you know, year 2 of Hall of Fame Hoodie Melo on that roster.
I mean, you know, if he's allowed to wear a hood for every game this year, then I would have put them in the 1 seed in the West. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I think Melo's, you know, a couple years off from his prime.
Well, with all these new jerseys that Nike's releasing, maybe they'll release a hooded jersey at some point soon.
Yeah, we saw the 2010s give us the sleeves, and now the 2020s giving us the hoodie jersey. You know, hopefully we could get in touch with someone at Nike. You know, pitch them our idea and see next year's City editions.
That's all I'm gonna say.
You probably have a couple of sleeve jerseys in your collection.
One thing I refuse to buy is a sleeve jersey. So my four play-in tournament teams for me are the Warriors, the Jazz, the Pelicans, and the Kings. I think that the Warriors, Curry, as we mentioned before, is going to have to be phenomenal this year, and I think he is a phenomenal player. So I think that he'll at least bring them to that 7 or 8 range and bring them into the play-in tournament. Utah, they have the same team as last year. Bogdanovic is healthy again, and I think that they can make a run for it. You know, snag that 8 seed. Donovan Mitchell should be taking another step forward. Rudy Gobert just got paid big time, and I think that although they are a great team and they were a top seed in one of the top 6 teams in the West last year, I think that a lot of teams got better, whereas they sort of stayed the same and stayed the course. And their bench, people are really high on Jordan Clarkson. I've been hearing a push for him to win 6th Man of the Year. You know, he might be great, but you know, you have to go more than one man deep. You know, is Georges Niang and Jordan Clarkson your key to success off the bench? I don't know about that. And then I got the Pelicans in the 9th spot. We've spoken a lot about the Pelicans before, and I just think that they will be great. They are a little unproven, but the veterans with JJ Redick, Steven Adams, and Eric Bledsoe should help them with a little bit of stability. And then rounding out that top 10, I think I have Sacramento there. For me, it was a toss-up between Sacramento and Houston. There's too much uncertainty with Houston. I think it's a matter of days, if not weeks, before Harden throws a ball at Stephen Silas's head, his new head coach. We've seen him throw one at the rookie. So for me, Harden's going to be gone sooner rather than later. He's turning into he's bringing a toxic atmosphere to that team. And who knows what we're going to get for him? The market's getting lower, and market's getting weaker for him. Teams are not going to be willing to give up as much as more and more stories come out. So Houston's relying on John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins to be like they used to be before their injuries. They're relying on Christian Wood to produce the same way he did in Detroit when he was literally the man, and didn't really have many other players to produce. I just don't know if they can do it if Harden's traded. it really, it's a huge caveat on who he's traded to and who he's traded for, when he's traded. That'll all affect the rankings and their standings and how many games they win. But I just don't see them making it. I think for them it makes a lot more sense just to get some young stars or some young assets and then rebuild. Try to maybe get a better lottery pick. So, and on the flip side, I think Sacramento they really they're a fun team. 2 seasons ago, they made that push for the A seed, almost made it. Everyone was high on them coming into last season, and they underwhelmed. But De'Aaron Fox can take a big step forward. Buddy Hield, also is a great shooter, great player. And then their team just looks like they have that fun energy. They got that, and especially throughout the season when a lot of players are going to be going in and out for COVID. You just want players who with that next man up mentality, who are going to be ready to play, eager to make the playoffs, ready to play hard every night. And the younger you are, the more eager you are to play hard. Tyrese Halliburton will be a great rookie. Everyone's already saying he's a steal of the draft. So I think that Sacramento can make the push for that final 10 spot.
Yeah, no, I mean, they look pretty good. They surprised me with that in the last second win against Denver yesterday. But who knows? Sacramento, they're just very inconsistent. So I couldn't really put them in the top 10 of going into the season. But who do you have in the finals? What's your finals prediction?
So I alluded to it earlier, but I think that it's going to be a Lakers versus 76ers in the finals, and the Lakers will comfortably win, and LeBron will get ring number 5, putting him one shy of MJ, furthering that GOAT debate.
You mean ring 3.5?
We can get into a whole MJ and LeBron debate on another episode. But, I just think that, as I mentioned earlier, I think Philly's a really exciting team. And one that I didn't mention, though, is that Philly can basically have 2 opportunities this season. They can try out the season with Simmons and Embiid and see how that works with this new roster with Doc Rivers, Daryl Morey, and, a clearer sense of direction. And if that doesn't work out, given, a month, 2 months in, they have the best trade offer that Houston is going to find for Harden. So, doesn't work out with Simmons and Embiid. All of a sudden, they can, ship off Simmons for Harden, and you can start fresh again with Harden and Embiid. And a Harden and Embiid duo is a scary combination, and I think that that's a team that can, again, also make the finals. So, I think that, I'm hedging my bets on the Sixers because I think they have 2 versions or 2 tries at this, whereas most of their teams are pretty locked in with who their roster is. So, I think that for me, it's a Lakers 76ers finals. What about you?
I have Brooklyn over the Clippers. I think the Lakers don't want to play the Clippers in the playoffs. For some reason, it just feels like the Clippers always have the Lakers number, when they play each other. The Lakers are a great team, but for some reason, I don't know what it is. When they play the Clippers, it always seems like, the younger brothers, always on top in that fight. And
listen, the Clippers have to make it that far in the playoffs in order for that to happen.
Exactly. That's the only thing. That's why it's a prediction. There's no guarantee that this happens or not. And the Nets, I just think they're deep as long as they stay healthy. If they're not healthy, then I would love to change the prediction. But if we could see a full season of KD and Kyrie, with their supporting cast, Karis LeVert, with Joe Harris, I think they're going to be the new king of New York. If not, they're already the new king in New York.
Well, you think that RJ Barrett's still trying to make a case for being the king of New York?
I don't know. Brooklyn seems to be more popular. Knicks fans have been in pain for years, so they could hop on the bandwagon. No one will know.
Yeah. For me, Brooklyn was the only other team I was considering making the finals. I was really torn between Philly and Brooklyn. Interesting, though, that both of us didn't have Milwaukee making the finals, even though they brought in Jrue Holiday. They have the 2-time MVP, the reigning defensive player of the year. Why don't you think Milwaukee will make the finals?
I just don't think they have enough pieces to make the finals. You have Giannis, you have Chris Middleton, you have Holiday. But even still, I don't think that's enough compared to, other teams. Trading for Holiday, I think, you lost some of your, you lost a bit of depth there, as I mentioned, previously. And, once you go on later into the season, players start to get tired. You need to be able to have, some guys that, can pick up the slack and help out the team. And I just don't see Milwaukee having that anymore. As you mentioned, the 76ers look stacked and they have a lot of options, going down the line, if they want to trade for, one of their players. and they could get a lot back in return. And I just think, Brooklyn and Philly, I think they're just going to be way stronger, way more competitive, and way deeper once, that fatigue starts to set in and once, playoffs come around. Personally, I'm just not sold on Milwaukee, and even though they're locked up Giannis long term, I still think they're going to have a bit of issues, landing free agents in the offseason, trying to get like another superstar to pair with Giannis. Milwaukee's not the number one destination for for someone to sign. Yeah, I'm sure it's a beautiful city. I'm sure it's nice, but it's not where most players want to be these days.
Yeah, for me, I sort of agree. Their depth, it's not really there. They're relying a lot on DJ Augustine, Torrey Craig, and Bobby Portis. And I think that, and although they're all fine players, better than me or you, better than a lot of players, I still think that they aren't. Their team isn't as full, as complete, as deep as Philly or Brooklyn. I also, though, in a playoff series, as great as Giannis is, I think that he still doesn't have a way where he can get an automatic bucket. He is dominant in the paint, but if you have a few big rim protectors and someone who can defend Giannis, and those players are few and scarce of players who can defend Giannis, but I still think that you take away the paint from him, unless he's going to develop the jump shot. You can't rely on him to get an easy bucket when a team is preparing against you, game planning and watching film for a 7-game series. It's going to be a lot harder for them to win games versus the regular season when it's a more flowing season. There's less game planning from game to game. I think that there'd be a fantastic regular season team, best in the East. But I think once the playoffs comes around, they're going to fall short once again. And maybe Giannis will regret his decision for re-signing with Milwaukee instead of signing with Toronto.
You sound a bit salty. You sound a bit salty that you didn't want to test free agency and come to Toronto.
As a fan of the Raptors, who don't usually get many superstars, I have I wish he could have come to Toronto, but I also respect him for staying in Milwaukee because I know that if the Raptors drafted Giannis, I would have loved it if he would re-sign a 5-year max before even hitting free agency. Also, retaining superstars in small markets is a challenge, and so good for Milwaukee for doing it.
No, that is super rare, to see these days. Normally you have a big name player. They play out the rookie contract. They sign the 5-year extension for $100 and some million, and then usually after that, by like the 7th year of playing in that one city, they're either demanding a trade, or they just leave in free agency, and the team gets screwed over. Kind of you saw a couple of years ago with AD demanding the trade in the 7th year. You saw Kemba leaving. Just Charlotte just letting him walk. So a lot of respect to Giannis, giving some of our smaller markets some hope going down the line in the future. But in Milwaukee, if you're looking for a bit of depth, bit of a contribution, Elon and I are free agents. We can't really give you any points, but we could give you some energy.
We'll lead the league in claps, that's for sure.
Yeah, claps and celebrations. We'll dust off the mixtape. It'll be on YouTube sometime soon. So Elon, going forward with the season, we've announced, our picks. We've announced where we think each team's going to be at the end of the season. Who's walking away with the hardware at the end of the year?
So I think that there's going to be a lot of fun, different races for all the different awards. And I guess I'll just start right away with my thoughts for MVP. I think that it's going to be Kevin Durant. I think he's going to come back to being who he was, or resemble a little bit of who he was. 90% of Kevin Durant is still a top player in the league. He was a top 2 player before getting hurt, and he's had really an absurd amount of time to get better. Like, he's had over a season and a half basically time-wise to get back. There was talk before the bubble about him coming back to play in the bubble. So giving him the extra 5 months off, even if he's 90%, that's still extremely good. I don't think there's so many clear front runners. The betting odds have Luka as the number 1 for the favorites, and I don't think the Mavericks will be good enough for Luka to win the award. KD is a top scorer in the league. I think he'll be one of the top scorers in the league and average some of the most points in the game. The Nets are going to be a fantastic team, and I think that the storyline is there for the comeback season and restoring glory to New York, to Brooklyn. I really think that a lot of the MVPs
Well,
about
not to New York, not to New York, just to Brooklyn.
to the state of New York.
Yeah,
but
fine.
but a lot of the MVP we know is just a storyline, and there's a lot of players who lack the storyline. I think that Kevin Durant will have that. He'll have the stats to back it up. He'll have the record to back it up. So my prediction is Kevin Durant takes the award.
Yeah, I think the stoppage from last season might have been one of the best things that happened to Durant. An Achilles injury is probably one of the, I guess, major injuries in sports. Aside from tearing your ACL, and usually that's a career-ending injury right there. We saw Kobe declined very quickly once he tore his Achilles. I think when was it, in 2013? Was it 2014? One of those seasons, and we saw he wasn't the same. Even though we have like a small sample size of Kevin Durant, he still looked, it looked like he never, skipped a beat. And just him going to Brooklyn, trying to start like his own, I guess, legacy, you could say. I'm really hoping that he could pull off, amazing season, win the MVP award, and it would be, as you mentioned, it would be quite the storyline for him to win.
I think also that Achilles injuries, it takes away a lot of athleticism from players, especially as they're aging. Whereas Kevin Durant, although he's athletic and although he is extremely athletic and relies on his athletic abilities, he's also just a great shooter. He can hit a shot from anywhere on the court, a 3, a 2. It doesn't matter. He's a 7-foot player who can shoot from literally anywhere in the court. So the shooting ability mixed with he can rely on Kyrie at times, and just his fantastic play, the amount of time he's had to heal. I think he's going to recover. I think he'll be back, and I think he'll be bringing home that MVP award come June. But the dark horse, though, that I had is Kawhi Leonard. People were very, very low on Kawhi and Paul George after the playoffs, and for good reason. But I think that Ty Lue is going to hold his stars accountable a little bit more. He's done that with Cleveland. He held LeBron to account. He held LeBron accountable, and I think that Kawhi's gonna have a bounce back season. I think that the Clippers are gonna realize that they can't coast as much and expect to be great without proving themselves as much as they did last year. And combined with Kawhi Leonard's defense and his ability to get any mid-range shot he wants at any time, I think that it's a very dark horse pick. But I think that he can also pull it off if they're a top seed team in the West.
Nah, I like your picks. This year's rookie class, seems to be quite a bit of hype towards it. Who do you have walking away with Rookie of the Year? Do you see LaMelo Ball, bringing some pride and glory to the Ball family?
Yeah, so my pick was LaMelo Ball. He's on a team where he does have the ball at all times, no pun intended. There's not many other players on that roster other than Gordon Hayward. And so I think that he'll be given the freedom to do what he wants. He's a flashy enough player. He'll be having a ton of highlights. You've seen his passes on Twitter in preseason already. And so he might have some learning curves. He'll be a little inconsistent at times, but I think that he's going to, light up Twitter every night, on Instagram every night. He'll be on Hoops of Highlights. And I think that, he'll have everyone tuning into a team that otherwise is a pretty bleak team that you wouldn't want to watch. The dark horse pick that I did have also, though, in case as a little runner-up, was Cole Anthony. Drafted to Orlando. He was the top point guard coming out of high school, and his stock has fallen a little bit since playing in college. But I think he's an explosive scorer, and he's really unafraid of the moment. He has his father was Greg Anthony, who played in the NBA also, so he had a lot of insights from there. He was preparing his whole life to be for this moment. Orlando will be playing some meaningful games. They'll be trying to, make a run at the playoff spots. So I think that Cole Anthony, I think he can really grab that Rookie of the Year award. There's not really many starting point guards on Orlando other than like Markelle Fultz. And even though he got paid a little bit of an overpayment for a player who's unproven, I think that Cole Anthony can end up being the main point guard on that team going forward.
Interesting. Who's walking away with most improved?
So my pick was Zion Williamson, your boy from New Orleans. And it might be a little bit of cheating because he really played 24 games last year. But I think that he's going to be just dominant this year. He's, Stan Van Gundy saying he won't have a minutes restriction. He's going to be playing a lot more. And if he does play more, from the sample size that we have, he's a dominant player. He's unstoppable and unguardable in the paint. He shot like I think 77% from the field last night against Toronto. And although he's an unconventional pick because he was injured or whatever, he's a classic second-year player who takes another step forward. I think he's really going to be dominant. He's amazing on defense. He's athletic. He'll have a ton of highlights as well. And he's also got a lot of exposure. The Pelicans are tied in second for the most nationally televised games this year. And so I think that combined with that and just the fact that Zion is an absolute force, I think he's going to get the award. I know that people were saying Michael Porter Jr. Is going to lead the way and he's going to get it because he's going to have a larger role in Denver. I just think that Zion's a bigger name. People are going to want to award him more, and I think he's going to have more of a bounce back or a big step forward from last season.
So who'd be your runner-up in that situation? Was it a Michael Porter Jr.?
So it's not Michael Porter. My runner-up was Thomas Bryant on Washington. He's been talking a lot about how he's working on his outside game and shooting the three ball. And in preseason, he I think hit at least one every game. He didn't hit one last night, but he attempted three. And I think he'll play a very similar role to what Steven Adams did in OKC for Russell Westbrook. He'll get a ton of easy buckets from Westbrook, when Westbrook's driving to the paint and does a quick dish off. And he can also stretch the floor for Bradley Beal or Westbrook so they can, kick it out to him. I think that he is a very great young player. And I think that, given the additional pieces that Washington now has, I think he's in a great scenario where he can, only do good, and he'll have a lot of opportunities to just get better stats and, provide for his team in a way that he wasn't able to last season.
Okay, I hear you on that one. Going forward, Defensive Player of the Year. Do we see Rudy Gobert win it again? As last year he didn't win it last year, but he was a shutdown player.
The guy's so good he shut down the league, huh?
Yeah. Do you think he wins it for the third time, or do you see someone else coming through winning it for their first time?
So for me, it wasn't really a question. I think it's going to be someone who wins it for the first time. It's Trae Young, without a doubt. The man gets a lot of steals. He's a pesky defender, ready to take another step forward. He's a defensive-minded veteran with Rondo giving him some pointers. So Trae Young for sure is going to win the award. No, I'm just kidding. Trae Young's an awful defender. I think it's going to be Anthony Davis. All respect to Trae. He's a great player. I have him on my fantasy team. But defense isn't really his strong suit. All jokes aside, though, I think Anthony Davis is going to be the Defensive Player of the Year. He'll be the best defensive player on the best team. He'll anchor their defense. And I think that the team's defense is going to be a lot better even than last year with Marc Gasol along AD and LeBron. Gasol is a really defensive-minded player and can anchor a defense, and really be a leader on there. Anthony Davis is going to, I think he'll lead the league in blocks. He's you can't really get by him on defense. And so I think that Anthony Davis has been a few years, he's been trying to go for that award for the past few years. He's made it public last year that he wants that award, and I think that this will be his year.
Who would be your runner-up in that situation?
So my runner-up is Bam Adebayo. We saw his incredible block on Jason Tatum in the bubble to win the game, and I think that you're going to see a little bit more of that defense this season. He's a versatile defender. He can protect the paint, he can protect the rim, and he can also switch on to perimeter players. He has the national attention after his finals run. I think you're going to see a big step forward from him. So I think that Bam Adebayo is going to be the runner-up and maybe even steal that award from Anthony Davis.
Okay. And moving on to the final award, who's your Sixth Man of the Year?
So for me, my Sixth Man of the Year is Will Barton. Michael Porter Jr. is probably going to be put into that starting lineup moving forward. And so I think that this leaves a big opportunity for Will Barton to lead his team off the bench. He's a streaky scorer who can put up some big numbers. He's used to starting with the Nuggets, and so I think that he'll now have a lot more freedom to really just, energize that second unit, and a lot more freedom to not have to defer to Jokic or to Jamal Murray, but rather take those shots himself. I think that he's going to put up, some really good numbers off the bench for a really good team in the West, and so I really think that Will Barton will get that award. And if not Will Barton, then I think it has to be Karis LeVert. We've seen what he's already done in that first game in Brooklyn. He's also this kind of player who'll have the freedom to do whatever he wants in that second unit. He'll have to try to defer to KD or Kyrie. He was an exceptional player last year and scores a ton for the Nets. And I think he's going to do that again off the bench for Brooklyn.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Karis LeVert. I was watching, when I was watching Warriors versus Nets, the announcers were just loving his play. saying, you might not be starting anymore, but you basically have all the freedom in the world to do what you want when you're on the court. So yeah, I agree with that. And as we move forward, tomorrow, Friday, December 25th, Christmas Day, we got a full day of basketball scheduled starting from 12. We got New Orleans versus Miami, Golden State versus Milwaukee, Brooklyn versus Boston, Dallas versus the Lakers, and to cap it off, we have the Clippers versus the Nuggets.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun day of basketball. Which game are you most excited for?
I can't wait for the Nets versus Celtics game. I think that could be an Eastern Conference Finals preview. Great divisional rivalry. I don't think I've been this excited for a Boston versus Brooklyn game since like the early 2010s once New Jersey moved to Brooklyn. But I think that's probably the game to watch. If only Golden State was fully healthy, I would have said them against the Bucks would have been the game of the day. But no, just to see Kevin Durant go up against Tatum, Kyrie playing his former team. I mean, there's not really fans in the arena. You can't really boo him, but it'll just be great to see. Why? What about you?
For me, the most exciting game is the Clippers Nuggets. That a little bit of that playoff rematch when Clippers blew that 3-1 lead to Denver. I think that the Clippers are going to try to take come out there with a lot of energy and make a statement win against the Nuggets. But the Nuggets are just a fun team. I love Jokic. Jamal Murray is a nice Canadian player, so you always have to respect for my Canadian players. But I think that's going to be really a fun team. They both can score the ball a ton. It'll be a high scoring game, and so for me, it's going to just be a fun one to watch. Let's just go through all the games and, why don't you make your predictions on who you think will win each game. So let's start the first game of the day, New Orleans versus Miami. Who do you have winning that game?
I think it's pretty obvious who I have. I'm taking Pelicans over Miami. I liked what they did against Toronto yesterday. They're playing well. Keep it up. We got New Orleans.
For me, I have Miami winning that game. They lost to Orlando. I think they're going to want to come back and get a big win on a nationally televised game. They are the reigning Eastern Conference champs, and so I think that they are going to want to come out and win a game at some point soon. And I think that Jimmy Butler will go off. He'll be ready for the moment. And so I have Miami over New Orleans. What about Golden State and Milwaukee? Do we even have to ask you, or or is it pretty obvious?
Milwaukee. Milwaukee by 30. That's what we're going to say.
Oh, that's generous to Golden State.
Do you have a difference of opinion there? Or can we just skip to the skip?
For me, the difference of opinion is I think it'll be Milwaukee over Golden State by 40, not 30.
It's going to be a long season in San Francisco. I can tell you that. Brooklyn versus Boston. I got Brooklyn. Like I said all throughout this show, I'm on the Brooklyn bandwagon. I hope they do well. They got experience. They got some youth. I got Brooklyn over Boston. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Brooklyn's going to get the win also. But I think that Boston's going to give a nice fight. I'm excited for that Tatum-Durant matchup. It's going to be a fun game, but I think that Brooklyn at the end of the day will get that dub. What about Dallas Lakers? Who do you think is going to win?
My gut's telling me the Lakers, but I wouldn't be surprised if, Dallas pulls off a bit of an upset and beats them. I think it'll be a pretty close game, but Lakers losing their first game to the Clippers, I think they'll really want to bounce back and beat the Mavericks. They don't want to go down 0-2.
Yeah, I think that LeBron's ready for Christmas Day. I think he's going to come out and put on a show, and especially with Kristaps injured right now, I think that the Mavericks just don't have enough to beat the Lakers. I think the Lakers will win pretty comfortably.
Your final game on the slate, Clippers versus Nuggets. Elon, who do you have?
I have the Clippers beating the Nuggets. It's going to be a fun one, but I think that Paul George is going to follow up his amazing performance against the Lakers with another great performance. I think Kawhi will do Kawhi things, and although Jokic and Jamal are a great duo, I think that the Clippers are going to get the win.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I still think Clippers are one of the best teams in the league, and they'll be very dominant this year. Thank you very much for listening to our first episode of Losers Ball. We hope you enjoyed it. As we said before, we don't know where this is going to take us. We'd love to hear feedback. You could message us on our various platforms on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok at Losers Ball Pod. we'd love to hear what you guys think about the show, what we can do better, what you like, because this is our first time doing a podcast, so we're always trying to improve, and we really appreciate any recommendations going forward. So thank you very much for listening. Hope everyone's staying safe, staying healthy, and stay tuned for more announcements on social media for our next episode.
Happy holidays, everyone.